Hey, New Hope. I want to talk about how we change our day. And we change our day by the way we start it. This is all part of the habits of hope, and the first one, which is called daily grace. And there are ways to start your day, and it takes about the same time as 5 minutes, about the time it takes me to drink my first cup of coffee, that I walk through. And I'm using this scripture. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And I break that down into 3 simple questions that you can do. And I've talked all about this in an earlier video, but I want to extend it because if you've got another 5 minutes, I think this could be powerful. So the first 3 questions have to do, what is it that makes this day unique? What is it that, what can I rejoice? And then finally, what am I going to do? How will I need to show up to be glad and to bring gladness to this day for myself and for others? All of that is down below. There's some places, some links to this and the other resources. And I would encourage you that if you find any of this to be helpful or useful, if you would click like on it and make a comment on it. And if you want to get more of these, make sure you subscribe below as well. So all that's well and good, but if you've got another 5 minutes, let me show you something that I find is very helpful, and it's a devotional. Actually, I have a bunch of devotionals I use. A devotional, if you've never used one, is small bits. It's a way of taking usually a piece of scripture or a thought. Somebody talks about it or enlarges it, and the whole point is to help reframe your day. Perfect for trying to ground ourselves in the presence of God. We try to reframe it, give us something to think about. And sometimes by having someone who's good at writing or thinking about something else really gives me a boost. So what I thought I would do is, rather than just tell you, go get a devotional, let me share the 5 different sources of devotionals that I use. Not all the time, but that's the point. There's lots of them there. And I wanted to just share a couple with you. And the first one is probably already familiar to you because it sits out in our lobby. It's called The Upper Room. Now, this is the paper version of it, and it's got a couple months worth. And it's got daily readings, and it's got the scriptures and a prayer. And here's what I like about The Upper Room. It's simple. It has a number of authors. It's no one. People from all over the world contribute, and therefore, a devotional isn't a Bible study. It isn't saying, here's what this scripture says. There's places for that, but this is a way of saying, here's how this scripture cuts across my life, and this is what it calls to mind to me. This is how it reorients me to what God is doing in this world. And I find it's the breadth of that is so helpful. And what I use is not just the paper version, but there's an online version, and if you go to it, you'll see that it has some great resources. So if you go online, what you'll see is that each day opens up and there's a scripture and there's the thought, and if you open it up, then it actually online pops up the scripture reading, and I like that, and then you can read it, and then there's the thought, and then there's a little prayer at the end of it, and I find it helpful. Again, 3-4 minutes, you've got something to think about. Again, sometimes you read this and go, boy, that doesn't relate to me at all. I would never have gone that way with that passage. But again, that's the point. It's not telling you what to think or telling you what is right. It's telling you about how this passage cuts across that person's life. And I find even when I disagree, it's like, well, then I have to ask the question, so how would I have said that? How does that one cut across me? And it does what a devotional is supposed to do. It has taken and reframed my day, my thinking, retweaked it, and it helped me ground myself in the presence of a loving God. Speaking of grounding ourselves in a loving God, the second devotional I use is from Henry Nouwen. Now, Henry Nouwen is an author who's passed, but he wrote prolifically, and he wrote a whole year's worth of devotions in a book called You Are the Beloved. We are using some of Nouwen and some of his insights when he's talking about the path of the beloved. And these are some of his writings. Now, you can do the same by going online. It's free. The Upper Room is not. I think it's a couple bucks. But now when you could go, and when you go on it, you will see that there is this little paragraph of some of his thinking. It's not a lot of people. It's one person. It's Nouwen. And the online version usually has a little prayer and a scripture that goes with it. Makes it for a nice devotional. And I find that Nouwen is wonderful to help ground me in the loving presence of God. I find the same thing when it comes to Richard Rohr and his Center for Action and Contemplation. Now, that's a whole site. It is lots of different resources there, and there is a daily devotional. And Richard Rohr has this daily thing that comes about midnight into your email box if you go that way, and it helps ground me in a different way. Now, this is what would be called contemplative thought and a contemplative spirituality. And for some, that's going to seem very foreign. And I'll be honest, there's days it really stretches me. But then that's why I go to it. I like being stretched. I like having someone help me think differently about something that I thought I knew and had down. Richard Rohr is wonderful for that. All his writings. And in Richard Rohr, sometimes it has him in it, and then oftentimes he invites other guest authors to take a week or a day around a certain theme. Highly recommended. This one might take you more than 5 minutes, though, because sometimes it's pretty dense and it really does draw you in, but it is still one of my favorites. There is one that has been put out by several denominations. It's called D365. It says that it is meant for students, but I will be honest with you, I don't always find it all that compelling for a student. I find it compelling if you take out some of the illustrations for just life. And what I think is even more compelling is not the little snippet of thought that's in it every day, but it's that process. And it's right there in the logo of it when it says pause, and then listen, and then think, and then pray, and then go. I find that to be a helpful framework for doing a devotional, no matter what the material it is, and no matter what happens to be on that site. Which brings me to my last, but definitely not least, recommendation, or something that I find helpful, and that's the site that has Frederick Buechner, and it's called Quote of the Day. Technically, it's not a daily devotional. It just kind of does that same work in me. Frederick Buechner is another author who has been profound in my life and has a way of helping to reframe and to see the sacred in the ordinary. And he has these different words or different quotes about things in the Bible or theology, and it always has a way of turning a corner for me and helping to just open up the windows and helping me to see things differently. You can go online, you can find that there. It doesn't always refer to a scripture, but there is a concept, there is something to do with God and with my soul and life, and I find it to be wonderful. Well, hey, which one's going to work best for you? Well, maybe all of them. I like to use several at the same time. Usually one will catch it, even if one or two don't. But maybe none of these will. But if they don't, I'll bet there is something out there that will. There's different authors and different publishers that produce things that likely will help you do exactly what a devotional is supposed to do. It is supposed to help you ground yourself in the reality of the presence of a loving God, and then get you ready. And about the time it takes you to drink that second cup of coffee, you're ready for the day. Okay, let's get on with it. You have a great day.